Dear students, good morning to everybody. So I have to continue the lesson, that is respiration under chapter 6. Now we have to proceed about the respiratory volumes and the capacities. During different phases of respiration, that is inspiration and expiration, we have different volumes. So the volumes of air in various phases of respiration are denoted as number 1 respiratory volumes, number 2 respiratory capacities. The various phases means you have inspiration, expiration, etc. So now let's take respiratory volumes. Now the respiratory volumes are calculated after forcible expiration or after forcible inspiration. So we are calculating the volumes only after forcible activity of lungs. So we can say after forcible expiration or after forcible inspiration. Okay. Now the first one, tidal volume. So when you are sitting idle, this is otherwise called actually the volume of air that enters into the lungs or leaves the lungs during quiet respiration. When they are sitting normally without doing any work, certain volume of air enters into the lungs, and that is called what is known as tidal volume. As in the book, the amount of air actually inspired or expired, the amount of air that is inspired or expired with each normal breath. It's one normal breath. So one normal breath includes inspiration and expiration. So inspiration and expiration together call as one breath rate or one ventilation, one normal breath. So the amount of air normally just actually inspire or expire, that is with each normal breath, is called tidal volume. It is about actually 500 ml. This is about 500 ml. Now, or we can also calculate this tidal volume per minute. This is during each ventilation. During each breath or during each ventilation 500 ml. But per minute you have to multiply this one by 12. So per minute it is about 6000 to 800 ml, maybe range. This is the original one, maybe given in the book as what we have 8000. So this is a tidal volume per minute. So multiplying this 500 into 12 because normal breathing rate is 12 to 15. Normal breathing rate is 12 to 15. So this value has been multiplied by either 12 or 15 or 16. So some cases. That's why what is called the measure is given between 6000 to 8000 ml per minute. Okay. Now the next one, inspiratory reserve volume, IRV. So this is an additional volume of air a person can inspire just by means of forcible inspiration. For example, when you are doing physical activities, this is while you are sitting normally and while you are doing some activities, what is happening? Additional volume of air that is enters in the lungs. So additional volume of air a person can inspire by forcible inspiration. That's while doing what is called the activities, physical activities. And that is equal to 2500 to 3000 ml, inspiratory reserve volume. Likewise, we have expiratory reserve volume, that is ERV. So the additional volume of air, just normally, a person can forcefully exhale. Additional volume of air, a person can actually forcefully exhale by forcible expiration. This is also happening during physical activities or exercises. That is equal to 1000 to 1100 ml. So this is called expiratory reserve volume. So these two activities are only after inspiration or after expiration. So anyway, just a forcible inspiration we can say by forcible inspiration or forcible expiration. The capacities are measured based on what we call normal respiration. There is normal inspiration and normal expiration. But the volumes are measured during forcible activities or during forcible inspiration and forcible expiration. Then coming to the residual volume. So what is happening? The volume of air that remains in the lungs after forcible expiration. After forcible expiration, that is during activities, not just during tidal volume. So the volume of air that remains in the lungs after forcible, what is called actually expiration, that is called residual volume. So the amount of air that remains in the lungs after forcible expiration, that is called the residual volume. It is about 1100 to 1200 ml. So this is about what we call the respiratory volumes based on forcible inspiration, forcible expiration, etc. So we have to go for the next one, respiratory capacities. Now I'll go to that one, the next. Now let us discuss about the respiratory capacities. Respiratory volumes are calculated just normally after forcible expiration or after forcible inspiration. Whereas the respiratory capacities are calculated after normal inspiration or normal expiration. That's the difference between volumes and capacities. That one based on what we have, forcible expiration or inspiration. This is based on normal expiration or normal inspiration process. Now first one, vital capacity. This is the maximum volume of air that can be moved out from the body after, that is what's called maximal inspiration. So the maximal inspiration, you see that one, after that one, what is happening just during the physical exercises, the maximum volume of air that can be moved out. We can also say the total volume of air that can be moved out from the body following maximal inspiration. So now this Vc is equal to inspiratory reserve volume plus expiratory reserve volume plus tidal volume. After adding all these three values, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume and tidal volume, you are getting vital capacity. So it is equal to 2500 to 3500 plus 1000 to 1100 plus 500 ml the tidal volume. You have to add this one. Now the next one, inspiratory capacity. The total volume of air that a person can inhale when after normal expiration. After normal expiration, we have to take a total volume of air. That total volume of air that has been inhaled by a person, that is after normal expiration, not forcible, after normal expiration is called inspiratory capacity or IC. So IC is equal to tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume. So 500 plus 2500 to 3000 ml. This is what's called inspiratory capacity. Similarly, expiratory capacity. Again, this is a total volume of air that a person can exhale. Now here, inhaling process, and this is exhaling process. When after normal inspiration, you see that one, volume of air that is moving out. The total volume of air that a person can exhale, expiration process after normal inspiration is called expiratory capacity. We will get this value by adding tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume. That is equal to 500 plus 1000 to 1100 ml. Equal to 500 plus 1000 to 1100 ml. That is called expiratory capacity. Now the next one, TLC. The total lung capacity. So the total volume of air that the lungs can accommodate after forced inspiration. So after forced inspiration, you have to calculate the volume of air that is being accommodated within the lungs, and that is called total lung capacity. So the total volume of air which the lungs can accommodate after forced inspiration during physical exercises. So total lung capacity, we have different formulae. So it can be calculated by adding vital capacity plus residual volume, or inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, tidal volume, these three together called Vc plus residual volume. So we can calculate Vc also if total lung volume or total lung capacity is given. Therefore Vc is equal to TLC Then if you subtract the residual volume from TLC, you are getting what's called VC. So TLC minus RV is equal to what's called VC. This is another method of calculating VC, because TLC is nothing but VC plus RV. If you subtract what is called actually RV from TLC, you are getting what's called the vital capacity. Okay, this is about the different vital capacities. So I will just give the total lung capacity because they are asking in the question paper. And also we have functional residual capacity. Another one, I will take that one. Now, how to calculate the total lung capacity? So total lung capacity is equal to tidal volume plus inspirated reserve volume plus expirated reserve volume and residual volume. Now the TV, the tidal volume is equal to 500 ml, the range. Then inspirated reserve volume, we have the range of 2500 to 3000 ml. Then expirated reserve volume is equal to 1100 ml. Then the residual volume is equal to 1100 to 1200 ml. So therefore the total lung capacity is equal to 5100 to 5800 ml of air. So we have to add all these four values. Then only you can get what is called the total lung capacity. Now the next one, what do you mean minute respiratory volume? So the amount of air that enters the respiratory passage per minute. The amount of air that enters the respiratory passage per minute. For calculating the minute respiratory volume, we need two units. One, the tidal volume, and then breathing rate. Per minute, the number of actually ventilation rate is equal to 12. This is the breathing rate, 12 per minute. We have to take the minimum 12. Then in a minute, the air is moving in and out. That is what is called 500 ml. In a minute, the air is moving out. That is a volume of air 500 ml multiplied by 12. Because in each inspiration expiration, we have 500. One breathing rate is equal to one expiration and one expiration together. So we have to multiply the tidal volume, that is what we have 500 ml, with the breathing rate. So we can get the value of 6000 ml. That is the volume of air that can be, that is what is called inspired or expired. And that is what is called the minute respiratory volume. So 6000 ml of air can be inspired or expired. So that is about what is called minute respiratory volume. Then we have to go for what will be functional residual capacity. One more capacity. After that we have to go for the diagrammatic representation and graphical method also. Okay. That's about what we have the total lung capacity and minute respiratory volume. Residual volume is a volume of air that remains in the lungs after forcible expiration. But this residual capacity, otherwise called functional residual capacity, is nothing but the volume of air that remains in the lungs after normal expiration. There I mentioned what is called forcible expiration. Now here after normal expiration, then it's called what is known as functional residual capacity. Capacities are always calculated just only after what we have just normal expiration or inspiration. So the volume of air that remains in the lungs after normal expiration, that is called functional residual capacity or simply residual capacity. It can be calculated by adding expirated reserve volume and then residual volume. Expirated reserve volume and then what we have, the residual volume. So these together constitute what's called functional residual capacity. Now the dead space. What is dead space? When we are inhaling, for example, 500 ml of air during tidal volume, during quiet respiration, we are taking in 500 ml of air. Out of this 500 ml of air, 150 ml of air just normally fills the respiratory passage. Remaining 350 ml alone reaches the lungs for gaseous exchange. So the volume of air that fills the respiratory passage, which does not take part normally in gaseous exchange, is called the dead space. So some amount of inspired air never reaches gas exchange areas, but it fills what we call the respiratory passage where gaseous exchange does not take place. So the air that remains in the respiratory passage, simply we can say the air that remains in the respiratory passage which does not take part in gases exchange, and that is called dead space. So dead space is equal to 150 ml. Out of 500 ml, 150 ml that remains in the respiratory passage. That is called dead space. Now dead space is not involved in gases exchange because it is not reaching what we have the respiratory exchange or gases exchange areas, the respiratory zone. That's why dead space is not involved in gases exchange, as they are found actually as the air is found only in the respiratory passage. That's the reason why it is called as a dead space. Never reaches the exchange areas for what we call gases exchange. So that's about what is the dead space, the the different types of volumes and capacities. Now we have to go for the next aspect, what we have, that is exchange of gases at the alveolar level, at the blood and the cells level. Now just let's see the illustration to show the lung volumes and capacities. Now this is one block referring to inspiratory reserve volume. This is a block for tidal volume. This is a block for expiratory reserve volume. And this is a block for residual volume. So 1, 2, 3, 4, just I am representing along with one more. Okay, so now this is actually representing resting tidal volume. In this segment we have tidal volume about what we have, actually 500 ml. It's about 500 ml. Now this is a segment what I mentioned, expiratory reserve volume. This one, expiratory reserve volume. Then this segment shows what we call residual volume. Okay, residual volume just from this one, 1000, just you see that one, we have 100, 1200. Now this segment shows what we have, this one, upper one, inspiratory reserve volume, IRV. This lower segment representing what's called expiratory reserve volume. This is what's called expiratory reserve volume. Now inspiratory capacity includes, you know that one, inspiratory reserve volume plus, you know that one, tidal volume. Inspiratory capacity includes what we have, inspiratory reserve volume and the tidal volume. That's why I'm extending the line here to here. Then vital capacity includes, you know that one, inspiratory reserve volume, then we have the tidal volume, then expiratory reserve volume. So this is inspiratory reserve volume, and this is what's called the tidal volume, this segment, and this is what's called the segment showing the expiratory reserve volume, together forming what's called vital capacity. Then we have the functional residual capacity, which includes normally what we have, expiratory reserve volume plus residual volume. That's why I'm extending here to here. This is referring to the expiratory reserve volume, this segment, and this is the residual volume, together form what's called functional residual capacity. So we have to divide the segments. So this is inspiratory segment, this is the tidal volume segment, this is what's called expiratory reserve volume, then we have the residual volume. By adding each and every one, just I'm extending the line here to here and here to here, representing the vital capacity. Inspiratory capacity includes, you know that one, inspiratory reserve volume plus tidal volume together form the inspiratory capacity. So accordingly, see, this is a block for tidal volume, this is a block for inspiratory reserve volume, this is a block for expiratory reserve volume, this is a block for residual volume, both together. So we have to add the arrow marks together representing the different capacities and what we have the volumes. Okay, this is a illustration showing what we have the lung volumes and capacities. The next one, how this exchange of gases occur. Now the primary site of exchange of gases is alveoli, which is a unit of lung function. Normally the uptake of oxygen and the release of carbon dioxide between the tissues and the blood normally takes place by a simple diffusion from higher to lower concentration. From the blood to the tissues, that's oxygen. From the tissues to the blood, carbon dioxide. because oxygen level is more in the blood, so it diffuses into the cell. As carbon dioxide level is more in the tissues, it diffuses into the low concentrated area, namely the blood. So by simple diffusion, the exchange of gases occurs in the alveoli or between the blood and the tissues. Now this diffusion is driven by what's called partial pressure gradient of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Partial pressure of what is called partial pressure gradient. That is, gradient means differences in partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Now what is partial pressure? Partial pressure is the pressure of an individual gas in a mixture of gases. So partial pressure is the pressure contributed by an individual gas in a mixture of gases. So an example. So how to calculate the partial pressure? I am taking to calculate what we got the partial pressure of oxygen. Now it is be calculated by the following formula, that is total pressure of mixture of gases multiplied by percentage of a gas. So this is a formula, total pressure of a mixture of gases multiplied by a percentage of a gas. I am taking actually the oxygen, how to calculate it. So the total pressure is about atmospheric pressure 760 millimeter mercury, a combination of what is called different gases together. Now the percentage of oxygen in the atmosphere is about 20.84 or 21%, just in a round figure. So the partial pressure of oxygen in atmosphere is equal to 760, that is nothing but the total partial pressure of mixture of gases multiplied by a percentage of a particular gas here 21. So it is about 159.6 or 159 millimeter. So this is what we call the PO2 in atmospheric pressure. So partial pressure of oxygen in atmosphere is equal to 159 millimeter. If you are taking the alveoli, it is about 104 millimeter. So I am just giving one example for oxygen only. That's about the partial pressure. So normally the partial pressure is expressed as what we have PO2 for oxygen and PCO2 for carbon dioxide. So PO2 for oxygen and PCO2 for carbon dioxide. This is the expression of partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Okay, let's see some more points related to, just a few points related to the exchange of gases. How does it occur? How oxygen moves from alveolus and reaches the tissues, and how carbon dioxide just is removed from the tissues and reaches the lungs for elimination. I already just mentioned about what is partial pressure. Now, due to partial pressure gradient, so normally PP is the partial pressure is represented as PO2 for oxygen and PCO2 for carbon dioxide. Due to pressure gradient, the partial pressure gradient means the differences. What will happen? Oxygen from alveoli enters into the blood and reaches the tissues. Similarly, carbon dioxide from the tissues enters into the blood and reaches the lungs or alveoli for elimination. I will show the diagram, then explain that one. Okay, this is what is happening. Now, carbon dioxide is more soluble than oxygen in water. As the solubility of what is called carbon dioxide is 20 to 25 times more than that of oxygen. 20 to 25 times more than that of oxygen. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide is much higher than that of oxygen, where in the deoxygenated blood. So the PO2 is less in the deoxygenated blood and PCO2 is higher. This is because of the higher solubility. So oxygen is less soluble in water, where carbon dioxide is more soluble, comparatively 20 to 25 times more than that of oxygen. That's why the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is much higher than that of oxygen in the deoxygenated blood. Okay, now I will just draw the diagram and explain how far, what is the pressure gradient, what is the pressure in the alveolus. It is about 104 for oxygen and for carbon dioxide only 40. So the pressure gradient in different places, in the arteries, in the veins, and also we have just in the lungs alveoli. I will represent a simple diagram, you can just understand. Now let's see the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide in different places. That is in the atmosphere, in the alveoli, in the oxygenated blood, in the deoxygenated blood, and then what we have, that is the tissues. Now this is the table showing the partial pressure of different gases, particularly oxygen and carbon dioxide in different places. Now respiratory gases, I am taking oxygen and carbon dioxide. Now here is the heading, PO2 and PCO2 in millimeter mercury is given here in comparison to those gases in the atmosphere. We are comparing the the partial pressure of what we have, oxygen and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and those gases present within the body. Now respiratory gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, now these are all the values given in partial pressure millimeter mercury. I am taking the places atmospheric air, alveoli, deoxygenated blood, that is impure blood, oxygenated blood and tissues. Now in the atmosphere we have 159 millimeter mercury of oxygen and carbon dioxide is 0.3 millimeter. Now in the alveoli, if you are taking that one, the PO2 is 104 and PCO2 is 40. Now in the case of deoxygenated blood and the tissues, we have the same values, that is PO2 is 40 and PCO2 is 45, and here also we have 40 and 45. So in the deoxygenated blood and the tissues we have, that is oxygen level 40 millimeter mercury and the carbon dioxide level 45 millimeter mercury. But in the case of oxygen blood, the level of oxygen is higher. So the PO2 is 45 millimeter mercury and PCO2 is 40 millimeter mercury. So this is a table showing what we have, the PCO2 and PO2 in different places. Now coming back to the process of exchange of gases. Now we are taking for example unit number 1 alveolus, unit number 2 heart and unit number 3 the circulation. You know the heart is normally having the left side and right side. The blue color indicates the right side of the heart and the red one indicates what we have the left side of the heart. The left side of the heart is filled with what we have oxygenated blood and the right side is filled with the deoxygenated blood. Now the deoxygenated blood from the heart is carried by pulmonary arteries to the alveolus. Now in the pulmonary arteries, if you are comparing the PO2 and PCO2, PCO2 level is high. That is 45 millimeter mercury and partial pressure of oxygen is 40 millimeter mercury. That blood is carried to the alveolus. In the alveolus, the partial pressure of oxygen is 104 and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40. Now let's take the exchange of oxygen. As the PO2 is 104 in comparison to 40 in the case of pulmonary arteries, oxygen diffuses across alveolar membrane entering into the pulmonary veins. This is what we have, the pure blood containing what is called pulmonary veins. At the same time, as the carbon dioxide level is more in the blood, that is 45 millimeter mercury in contrast to what is called 40 in the alveolus, this is a pressure gradient. So carbon dioxide is diffused into the alveolus. So this is the exchange between the alveolus and the blood. Now the blood is purified. It becomes oxygenated, carried by the pulmonary veins to what is called the left side of the heart, particularly what is called the left atrium. So pulmonary veins carry the pure blood, oxygen blood to the left atrium. Now in the pulmonary veins, as the oxygen enters, now the PO2 increases to 95 millimeter mercury. And the carbon dioxide level decreases from 45 to 40. Here 45, here 40. Now the blood is transported through what is called systemic arteries. Systemic arteries are blood vessels which carry blood to the tissues, pure blood or oxygenated blood. Now in the systemic arteries, the same level as in the case of pulmonary veins, that is 95 millimeter mercury of PO2 and 40 millimeter mercury of PCO2. Now this is the blood vessel carrying oxygenated blood. Now it is being transported to the tissues where oxygen is delivered and carbon dioxide enters in the blood. Now carbon dioxide is transported through systemic veins. In the systemic veins, PO2 is less, that is 40 millimeter mercury, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 45 millimeter mercury. The systemic veins carry normally what we have deoxygenated blood. Now it enters into the what is called the right atrium, from where again it is transported to the alveolus where exchange of gas is taking place. Now the expired air also contains oxygen somehow. So in the expired air, PO2 is 120 mm mercury and PCO2 is 27 mm mercury. Compare that one here, carbon dioxide is less and more. And here oxygen is more and then less. That means oxygen is taken up and carbon dioxide is given up. So don't forget the veins carry deoxygen blood. In all the veins you can have PO2 is 40 and PCO2 is 45. You see the arteries carry what we have oxygen. So except the pulmonary veins, there you have PO2 is 95 and then PCO2 is 40 mm mercury. This is a pure blood. The same blood is transported to the tissues which also contains PO2 of 95 mm mercury and PCO2 of 40 mm mercury. So that's about what we have exchange of gases, two places. One between the alveolus and the blood, another one between the blood and the tissues normally taking place. In such a way, we have the exchange of gases normally completed. So between the alveolar air and the blood, and between the blood and the tissue.